Good afternoon. Welcome to the Hamilton City School Board of Education Board meeting. Also, for the record, Dr. Copas will not be in attendance tonight. If we could all stand for our pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty. Good afternoon, Ms. Fraser. If you could call the roll, please.
Absolutely. Ms. Matthews?
Here.
Mr. Davidson?
Here.
Dr. Hopkins?
Here.
Ms. Mancuso?
Here.
And as President Matthews stated, Dr. Copas will be absent this evening.
Thank you. I don't see anyone from City Council. So we'll move on to, it is Board Member Recognition Month. So I will turn that over to Ms. Weisbrod.
Thank you much. So we get the pleasure of spotlighting you this afternoon. So January is National School Board Recognition Month, and we're blessed to bring in 2 new members at the beginning of January. The week of January 12th, for the public that's out there, we ran spotlights on each of the board members, which was actually really wonderful. We got a lot of good social media traction for that. So we thank you for showing some insight to yourselves and why being on the Hamilton City School Board is so important. We want to close out the month of January by recognizing each one of you this afternoon, and just a heartfelt thank you. I know it's an extremely tough job, and you guys have led and always have led with dignity and grace and with the best interests in mind for not only our students, but all of our staff members as well. And as a staff member, as a mother, and as a community member of Hamilton, I personally want to thank each one of you for that, for your forward thinking, your leadership, and continue to push this excellent district in the direction that it will continue to go, and that's onward and upwards. So this evening, on behalf of the Ohio School Boards Association, I'd like to present each one of you with a certificate of appreciation. And then after we're finished and some other closing words, if you had anything to say, we'll recognize you so we can get that out for a community spotlight. So Mr. Dave Davidson, Ms. Shaquila Matthews. Yep, thank you. Dr. Ashley Hopkins.
Thank you, sir.
And Ms. Carrie Mancuso. Thank you so much for all that you guys do for our community. And we also have one for Dr. Copas, but again, he's out and we'll recognize him when we see him next. Thank you.
Yes, if I could just add, I want to thank you each for your work and collaboration together. There aren't many days that I don't speak to many of you, and I've never met a group of more passionate people who really care and want to be involved in the decision-making for our students and staff. And so as a superintendent, your board is really important, that we are always communicating, always advocating, and having good conversations. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree on every approach, but really sitting down, talking through those and doing what's best. And I just want to thank you. As Ms. Weisbrod said, this job is not easy. They get harder and harder every day. And right now, as our district goes through difficult financial times, I couldn't be more blessed to have such a passionate group of 5 people who are helping to drive the decision-making in the future forward for this district. So from my seat, I just want to thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Weisbrod, for the presentation of our and recognizing us. And again, I'm glad to work with the great group of board members. So yeah, I like how it says scaling new heights. That's exactly what we're doing. Doing some good stuff. So in spite of it, yes, we're doing some good stuff. So next on our agenda is our property tax reform analysis, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Fraser.
Thank you, President Matthews. As promised, we are going to look at the effects of some of the newly passed property tax reform. Governor DeWine signed these bills back in December, and from then until now, we've kind of been analyzing what does that mean for Hamilton City Schools, how is that impacted, us, the forecast, our plans moving forward, and all those types of things. So I've got 4 slides that we're going to go over. Most of them are comparison documents between what we knew in October for the October forecast, and basically we've rolled that forward to include property tax reform in the model. I think it's important to keep in mind there's no other changes within what I'm going to share tonight. We're not looking at, how we are comparing to plan for this year, any enrollment increases or drops, anything like that. This is strictly a comparison of October and then including the property tax reform. I'm going to be blunt. It's not good for Hamilton City Schools. This is making a bad financial situation worse for us to the tune of about $3.3 to $3.9 million per year starting in FY28. So we'll go through some comparison documents and then we'll talk about exactly how that impacts us. So first slide we've got here, this is, again, it's a comparison document of line 6.01 on the forecast. Line 6.01 on the forecast is where it shows a revenue surplus or a shortfall. So you're either bringing in more money than you're spending and you'll have a surplus, or you're spending more money than you're bringing in and you'll have a shortfall. Obviously, on the October forecast, we were showing a shortfall, a spending deficit, and you can see on this graph here, the dotted gray line is the October forecast. The solid line is representative of the October forecast with included property tax reform. So obviously, I've said it's going to be a shortfall of revenue over and above the October forecast of north of $3 million. So obviously, the spending deficit is increasing, and that's what this shows right here. So said differently, this is a comparison of just the revenue line items on the forecast. So again, we're only talking about property tax reform as the difference between here and October. So really the only thing that's going to be different is the real estate property line on the forecast. Expenditures are not changing, just that top line on the forecast, property taxes. So you can see we were predicting in October that green dotted line here of a relatively flat revenue base. And we have increased expenditures. Expenditures are always increasing. Predicting a flat revenue base, again, that causes a deficit. But we can see here the solid green line is the updated model that includes property tax reform. And we can see those revenues no longer being flat, but actually losing revenues with that full impact coming in FY28. The reason we don't see the full impact coming in until 28 is in the current law, they put in a backfiller. So the very first year that those property taxes are reduced, we don't see the full weight of that. The state's going to backfill some of that for us. But again, that's only a one-year deal. And these taxpayer credits, which we'll get into, are moving forward, okay?
How far forward do they move? I mean, indefinitely or?
Right now, the law says indefinitely. Yeah. So, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts here on this slide. It's actually pretty complicated what they've done. So, the real gist of the law is they've said that any district that's on the 20 mil floor, historically, if tax values went up 20%, the school district's piece of that would go up 20%, okay? Well, they've put a cap in place, and the cap is CPI, Consumer Price Index. And so for the last 3 years, the CPI has been 9.1%, okay? So let's say the county auditor comes out and she says values are going to increase 17%. Typically, Hamilton would get a 17% increase on its portion of the property tax bill. Well, you as a Hamilton taxpayer are going to see your increased value, you're going to see your increased tax, but you're also going to see a taxpayer credit to take that 17 down to the 9 for the school district piece, okay? And that's moving forward. And that, to be honest, would be easy to plan for. We would never forecast more than what the consumer price index is, right? And plan accordingly. So does that piece, because that's only one piece, does that piece make sense that property taxes for schools on the 20 mil floor are capped at the consumer price index? Okay, so the real kicker is there's also a provision in the law, which was done, I believe, later on in the process. The new legislation provides for retroactive property tax credits. So what they're doing is they're saying the last time that values were assessed was tax year 23, collect 24. And we are going to give taxpayer credits based on if the law was in place at that time. That's the real kicker, okay? Because as everybody knows, in Ohio, the last reval was high, right? So what they're saying is if the law was in place for consumer price index at that time, here's what those credits would have been for property taxes. And so they are taking that value, which is about district-wide, it's about $3.3 million, and they're rolling that forward for the foreseeable future. To answer your question, Dave, it's in law, and there is, at least how we're being trained now, there is no end to that. So that means in FY28, if I'm forecasting 26 million that I forecasted in October, guess what? That's $22.7 million instead of $26 million. Big difference for us moving forward. That's the tricky part, is that retroactive piece.
Curiosity, is this aimed just at public schools, or county governments getting hit with it, city governments, and our great legislature getting hit with,
This piece of the property tax reform is only aimed at schools. If you look at like a workflow chart,
Yeah.
it says, is the school district at the 20 mil floor? No. Okay, none of it applies. If the school district's at the 20 mil floor, then it applies. It doesn't mention any other, because there's no 20 mil floor for other government entities.
but property taxes are not just for schools.
Correct, but this piece of it is for schools, yes.
And the state legislature and the governor hasn't done anything to curb expenses or reduce what, the county government gets or what the state gets. Is that correct?
As far as I know, they're just hammering schools right now. Yeah,
Th-
good
that's
point,
correct.
though.
That's correct, Dave. That the property values will continue to be reassessed, and I think that's what you're getting at. If there are increases, the only caps that have been put in through legislative action are on the school districts, not the other entities that get a piece of that increase. So the targeted credit that tax owner or that homeowners will get is the dollars that school districts are losing. Doesn't mean they couldn't still see raised taxes in other areas or pieces, but you are correct. From my understanding and my review, the only cap that has been applied is to limit the amount of funds school districts can get on those reassessments.
Right, right. And like I said before, I mean, if you told us that it was going to be, your property tax revenues moving forward are capped at the inflation rate, so be it. But the going back and having that retroactive credit as if the law was in place, they're basically removing dollars from us moving forward that we already received back in collect year 24. So that's the kicker, is the retroactive treatment of the last reval. Do we have any questions on that? Because I know that's a complicated thing, and it's, it takes a while to digest that, but that's where the 3.3 comes from. I've also referenced a 3.9. That is an additional This year it was $584,000 that the commissioners chose to enact that piggyback exemption on the homestead. Again, that's a one-year thing. They could do it next year or not do it next year. So that's why our estimate is the 3.3 for the retroactive credits. And if the commissioners decide to re-up the homestead piggyback, we're looking at 3.9.
And when does that hit the budget?
So you as a taxpayer in Hamilton, you did not, I don't know if anybody has seen their tax bill yet, but they're out. The law was just put in place, so the treasurer, the auditor have not had a chance to put those credits on the bill yet. So you'll not see that on your first half tax bill. On your second half tax bill, when you get it in August timeframe, you will see the credit for the retroactive plus whatever, if it's 17% valuation increase, you'll see a credit for that difference between that and the 9.1. So it will affect us this calendar year, but that is FY27. And again, there are some partial backfills, so we're not going to see, the 3.3 million hit us in FY27. But in 28, we will see the full impact of the legislation. Do we have any questions on that slide? I mean, I've only got one more. It just shows it's a comparison document that shows days cash on hand for what we knew in October versus what we know now with property tax relief. Dr. Hopkins actually had sent me an email regarding what's recommended for days of cash. If you talk to ODE or ODU, they say no less than 30 days of cash, which is 1 month. That's extremely scary to me. Anybody that only has 30 days of cash is either on the ballot or they're doing a significant reduction plan. It's just 30 days cash is not sustainable. Also, if we look at fiscal year 2029 there, you can see in the October forecast we had 2 days of cash, which equated to about $768,000 was the bottom right number on the forecast. With this inclusion of property tax reform, we're looking at negative 24 days of cash, which equates to about a negative $9 million number as far as cash at the end of fiscal year 2029. So it's a big, big change. It's going to be reflective in my February forecast next month, so we get to talk about this again. But again, this is not inclusive of anything else we're doing, any updates. The February forecast will be inclusive of trends so far this year, how we're shaping up. We've got a cash flow analysis under the normal treasurer reports that we approve every meeting. Right now, we're to the good about $616,000, but that's in large part in result of some additional TIF dollars that we received in December. So we're running pretty close to plan, and that's what the February forecast will include. Anything additionally that we do as far as a district moving forward and decisions that we are going to make will not be reflected in that February forecast, meaning that lucky me, I get to do a third forecast this year. And we'll do that in May or June, hopefully with some of those things in place. So that's really all I have. I know it's a complicated issue, but it's a big time issue for us and anybody on the 20 mil floor. I think 8 of the 10 school districts in the county are on the floor, so this is going to affect a ton of people. If you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Quick question.
Yep.
State has a rainy day fund. Do you know what that is right now?
I don't know what the total balance is, but I can get that for you. I know it's quite large.
Quite large.
Yeah.
And didn't we just get a email from the Ohio Senate critical of us for having cash reserve, our rainy day fund, which is minimal? I think theirs is almost $1 billion on the state level.
It may be more. I want to applaud Andrea. She responded back with a great answer.
Yes.
I mean, they want to penalize us for being fiscally responsible and having cash on hand. Well, when things like this happen, obviously it's terrible for school districts, but, we are actually better able to weather the storm than a lot of folks. And so they want to penalize us for that, but, I think we're doing a great job, and her answer was fantastic.
It was.
Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Frazier for sharing this. Obviously, the first part of this devastating budget for us happened this summer when they changed the way that they're funding and failed to continue to fully implement the fair school funding formula. That is why we had to start acting. Why do we have cash reserves? I hear that a lot. Why do we keep money for 100 days? It's for that. The changes that happened in July, I want to say that again, this past July going into August, caused us to go from $1 million of overspend to $5 million within a blink of an eye. These additional things that were just signed into law on December 19th are going to cost an additional $3.3 million. And so it is really important that our residents, our board, our staff understand that these decisions that are being made are having immediate and drastic impacts. That's why it's so important we do keep reserves, because we can't be changed. Can you imagine if we were trying to change things right now on a $3.3 million budget item that's changing? We don't want to do the things that we're doing right now. I want to be very clear. Our state politicians want to throw that back in our face, that because we have cash reserves, that means we shouldn't be funded at the correct level. However, that is not the problem that's happening here. It is not our spending. It's the complete changing of the trajectory of what we've been told we either have been given, in the case of property tax dollars, for them to go back 3 years for money that was already allocated, given to our district, that in many cases we've spent. And then the property tax, or the funding formula, it's a hard day in education. We are doing everything we can to keep ourselves as solvent. We're going to talk about that again tonight with our budget reduction plan. But I've heard from so many people, why just now? Why didn't you know about this before now? Why weren't you budgeting years ago? We have always lived within our means. But when the boundaries change, we have to pivot quickly to ensure that we can still be responsive to the needs of our community and our students and our staff.
We were definitely blindsided in July. No warning at all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Frazier, for that.
Cast.
Next, we'll turn it over to, we'll be doing the budget, to Superintendent Blevins for our budget reduction plan update.
Yes, thank you, President Matthews. We're just switching over here, Cass, so that I can share an update. I'm going to save my overview of my comments just to respond to the community until later during Superintendent, but I do want to provide an update to the board on where we are with our budget planning and kind of moving forward. One, as you know, on Friday the 16th, we rolled out what our budget reduction plan was to cut approximately $9.7 million from our spending starting with the 26-27 school year. That included the closure of one elementary school, the outsourcing of preschool to Butler County ESC, the outsourcing of nursing services to Butler County ESC, as well as a number of other changes that are happening throughout our district. One of the looming questions, moving our freshman campus to the high school. One of the looming questions was, well, what are you going to do with the freshman campus? And so we wanted to come back tonight to kind of share that update, both with the board, more for the community. There will be a community letter that goes out going over this as well this evening, and the staff that are affected in this change have been communicated with as well, okay? I'm going to stay here tonight if that's okay while we talk. I feel so weird with the screen way down there. As we talked before, I just want to put this back and remind our board, as we've looked at trying to reduce this budget, we've really looked at how can we provide a continued high-quality experience. That is our focus throughout all of this. While $9.7 million is a large sum of money, and we've had to look at large decision-making, and changes throughout our district, it's also important to note that we've really looked at everything. We've done an extensive research into how other communities are serving their students. How are they doing it for less dollars? How can we continue to provide and be Big Blue? Some of those strategies involve building consolidation, the outsourcing, and right sizing. However, when we sat back and looked at, okay, now what is the plan with the freshman campus? As we talked about as a board, we do not want to do something that we can't undo if populations were to change. We want to continue to maintain our facilities. We want to look at ensuring we're providing high-quality experiences in every single building across this district. And so the second part of this plan really isn't saving money. Instead, it is better use of our footprint of how we manage our buildings and what experience we provide. So one of the big things that we would like to do with the freshman campus now vacant, we would best like to relocate Wilson Middle School, which is currently at Eaton Avenue, to the freshman campus location on Northwest Washington. Everything about Wilson Middle School would transition from the Eaton Avenue school to the Northwest Washington location. Right now, our Wilson building is our smallest traditional school building in use. Wilson has seen an influx of students. Actually, they are only 80 students less than Garfield, which is almost double their size. They are at capacity when it comes to classrooms. We have had requests in the last number of years to turn closets into office space or conference rooms. We've had to get very creative. It's one of our only buildings where we have staff that travels on cart to cart from classroom because they don't have a permanent location. By making the move from Wilson to the freshman campus, that opens up 10 additional classroom spaces to allow them to spread out more. That gives 50,000 more square feet, a larger cafeteria, a larger gym, lots of opportunities. So when we sat back and really looked at this, we said, while that's a change, we think it best serves our kids. And so that's the first kind of phase of this move, is to move the Wilson Middle School location from Eaton Avenue to Northwest Washington. If you notice, I even did a mock-up. We would change all of the signage and those pieces. They would be Wilson Middle School, just at a different location. In addition, we currently have a building down in Ross Avenue in downtown Hamilton that serves our Miami School programming. That is our alternative high school, credit recovery high school. If you've been in that building, it is not a traditional high school setting. It is 4 classrooms with some bathrooms. We don't even have a cafeteria, library, any spaces to help support those students' needs. And so with this move, one of the things that this would open up is for Miami School to be able to transition to the Wilson location. So Miami School would start their school year next year in the 27 school year at the Eaton Avenue location. Okay, this provides better footprint, expansion, capacity, lots of different pieces. Eventually, we would like to also move our enrollment center from the Ross Avenue building to that Wilson location. However, July, August, and September are our busiest months for enrollment. That would not behoove our district to try to make that move at that time when we're trying to enroll and place students. So I put this out to the board to say this will kind of be a 1-2 move, in that the Miami School would move to start the school year, get kids set up, all of those pieces, and then later on in the fall, we would like to move enrollment over. Our eventual plan would be to try to sell our Ross Avenue building. It is our building that is the smallest footprint. It's an untraditional school building, kind of similar to here, where this is not a school environment. It also is our most expensive to upkeep. So when we really looked at all of our facilities and the use of them, we thought that this plan makes sense. If we are able to sell the Ross Avenue building, those dollars, just so that the board is aware, when you purchase a building using a particular fund, so we used our permanent improvement dollars to purchase that building on Ross Avenue. We purchased it for $699,000. If we sell that building, it has to go back into permanent improvement dollars. So while it might not help our general fund, that is a fund that continues to ensure we have roofs and maintenance and all kinds of other pieces. Right now, we've put in almost $1 million over the years since owning that in updates. Right now, the valuation of that property sits at $2 million on the auditor's website. So we believe that we would recoup all funds put in and make a little extra in that particular piece. So that would be our plan to ensure that all of our buildings are used to their fullest capacity here in Hamilton City Schools. To kind of recap, I just put a slide together that shows kind of our footprint, okay? Right now on the left-hand side, we have 13 active buildings in our district that support our school age, okay? We have 8 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and then our 3 high schools, one being the freshman campus, the traditional 10-12 high school, and our Miami School Credit Recovery. Throughout this transition, that would take Hamilton City Schools' footprint to owning still 12 buildings, okay? But we would be operating school-age programs out of 11, okay? Over here we would have 7 elementaries. The one that's in yellow is Fairwood Elementary that would be transitioning. If you remember, that is the site where we will allow Butler County ESC to run preschool. Maybe that's the Hamilton Early Learning Center. Those are just a temporary holder right now for us to come up with what that piece looks like. We would still operate 2 middle schools. The only difference on the middle schools is the physical location of Wilson. So you can see there in yellow, I changed the address from 714 Eaton Avenue to 2260 Northwest Washington. Then when you get it down into our high school offerings, we would have 1 9-12 high school. I put that in yellow because while the location doesn't change, the grade level served is different. And then our Miami school, which is our credit recovery high school, would change its location from 140 Ross Avenue to 714 Eaton Avenue. Okay? Any questions on those pieces before I go into timeline and some others? Dave, no?
Just a comment. I think by closing the Miami school, we'll save money on utilities, maintenance. I mean, it is very expensive to run that building because of
Correct.
its age and outdated equipment.
Yeah, I think when we sat down and really looked at us, that was the building that was the easiest for us to look and part with. We have amazing facilities in Hamilton City Schools. We want to continue to keep amazing facilities and opportunities for our kids. And so, yes, while there's some movement there, I think this better aligns us to serve. It also puts Wilson in a size of a building very close to Garfield, which allows us for down the line. If there's additional restructures, nowhere near, let me say that twice, there's no additional changes coming as part of this plan. But if in a number of years, I've heard people talk about going back to traditional middle schools of 6, 7, and 8, or different pieces like that, there's opportunities for that by setting up this restructure. If we keep it as is and move our Miami school to the freshman campus, that's an extremely large facility for a small program. And so looking at these things, I want to commend our team for being willing to look at this and take on these tasks. We did, just so the board knows, meet with the Miami school and Wilson staff today to make sure they are aware. Transparency does not end just because we've rolled out the bulk of this plan. We met with our staff. I do have a district email that will go out to the community tonight talking about, you've each seen a copy of that email, just explaining these changes and why they're important to our district. I also just put an updated timeline. I know before when we met, we put an updated timeline kind of by month of where we were, just to give you a little where we've been and where we're going. So last week, the week of January 19th, even though we didn't have school on that Monday, we met with all HCTA administrative and miscellaneous staff members who were part of either the reduction in force or displaced. So Mike, Mr. Zeri, and myself, as well as Katie McApee, sat and met with every single one of our staff members who are directly impacted by these changes. So all of the members in those 3 areas have all been communicated with. This week, we are going to meet, bearing that school can get back in session, we are going to meet with 151, which are our clerical and educational assistant union, to finalize lists and the bumping process of what that looks like. We are also going to work with our 468 leadership. that oversees our custodians and our food service employees to finalize placement. In the 468 union, there is no job loss, just displacement, where people might be transferring based on these changes. For instance, with putting additional kids at the high school, we need more cooks, we need more support staff. So it's just a change of location of those pieces. So we're going to start that process this week. Then the week of February 2nd through the 16th, it's actually a 2-week window. Mr. Wright and Mr. Zeri will be traveling back out to meet with any staff member who is displaced, which means they still have a job in the district, but it's not in their current role, to finalize what that placement is for 26-27. We did provide any displaced staff member with a survey to get their opinion. We're really trying to work and meet teachers' needs, our staff's needs of what's best fit for them. And I'm pretty happy to report that so far that process has gone pretty well, where we can meet staff where they want to be and help to work through this process in a collaborative manner. We also are working with Butler County ESC. Mr. Frazier's leading that charge for us to start working on a draft contract with the Butler County ESC for our preschool program, as well as nursing and some of our other related services that we typically get through them. Our plan for the board, just so that you know, is our next business meeting after today is Tuesday, February 24th. At that meeting is where the names of the actual staff who are on the RIF list, so who do not have a secured position for 26-27, will be presented to you for approval. Okay? Then Jeremy will also, as he mentioned, do his updated forecast. We will present the ESC contract to be approved that evening, and we're going to continue to work on staffing and placement as additional openings happen. Okay? In March, you can see that continues. Some of the work that is created, our first priority right now is to communicate with the community and to communicate with our staff. However, there's much to figure out in these next few months as we gear up for the start of 26-27. Some of the things that we're working on is as people retire, as people resign, we will be able to recall people off that list. Even since last Friday to today, there have been movement to where we are able to recall as many people as we humanly can as positions become open. We are also working with transportation to put in the new schools and addresses to figure out transportation routes. And we are looking at building start times for next year. There might be some slight adjustments with those particular pieces based on having 2 less schools in play for transportation. Our plan is to hopefully have those in March so that we can communicate those as early as possible to our staff in the community. But those are pieces we're working on. We are also in the month of March going to work on some open houses and building visits for staff. Many of our staff haven't stepped foot in some of the buildings that they're going to be going to. The new principals would like to sit down with them, see how they can support this transition, answer any questions of those pieces. You'll then see in April, the same process will take place for families. So we will host open houses and student tours at their new schools. We've even talked about for the Fairwood students of loading up the students and actually having them go and walk through their new schools even before those open houses. It's really important that just like we help elementary kids transition to middle school, we need to do the same for students that are going to experience a change throughout this process. Mike and John will continue to work on the recall list. I can see that's on there twice. You can tell it was right on my mind this morning. I think it ran out of room on the March one. That's why it's on there twice. But April and May, we will continue to work on that recall list. So after we present that list of employees to you at the February meeting, Mr. Davidson asked a good question. He said, so as we see retirements and resignation, that's a good thing because that means you can go back to the list and recall someone. After that February 24th agenda, you will see on future agendas a recall, staff members' names with recalls. So you can track how many we are able to call back throughout this process this year. In a typical year, Mike has shared, we turn over about 40 to 50 staff members in a given year. So we'll see where that winds up this year. We are also working to help all of our staff affected in this to try to locate new positions. And I'll talk about that later in my superintendent comments. Then this summer is going to be busy. That is when the building moves. That's when you're going to see a lot of these pieces. Mr. Kilby and his team are already starting to plan for that, to supply boxes and materials to the teachers affected, to come up with a way to do this in a systematic process. For instance, we're not going to move all the boxes into a school before it needs to be cleaned. Let's make sure that we're doing this. I said, let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's make sure this is a very systematic process so that all staff have the materials they need ready to go when they come into their new positions in 26, 27. Okay? And then the last thing I just put up here, any questions or comments from the board on where we are right now?
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
we're leaving Wilson, the Eaton Avenue, going over to North Washington.
Yes.
What about the equipment that's in Wilson? Desk and books and
So
other supplies?
the nice thing is, as far as resources, yes, the resources needed to run a middle school will be moved over. The desks at both the freshman and Wilson are very similar. We will move as needed. However, we see a lot of those Wilson desks probably going to the high school to help support the freshmen instead of moving twice. We don't want to move furniture twice if we don't have to. But all of their resources, we've already started talking with the librarians about what does packing up books, what books are appropriate for middle school that aren't appropriate with high school. All of those pieces will be coordinated by our central office team. Our curriculum team will work to walk through the buildings. I actually had a teacher today on the Zoom said this might actually cause me to purge a little bit. I am a self-admitted teacher pack rat. I still have basements of crates. I have crates all over my basement of my old overhead projector sheets that I used to teach with. I don't even think they make those anymore. I can't do it. I cannot let them go, not yet. But this is a great time that we'll work through with our staff. But anything they need, we will make sure is in their new location. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
No, I just want to say thank you for your team for putting all the, the extra thought into it, of just even like the little nuances that, people don't even think of that needed to go into this plan. So, thank you for that, and also making this as easy as a transition as possible with, such a difficult and challenging situation. So thank you for that, and all the consideration that you all put into it is definitely much appreciated. And transparency and keeping everybody, up to date in what's going on and providing this timeline, because I think it's very important. So to help calm nerves and to dismiss rumors and kill all that noise, because all that's unnecessary, and it doesn't do anything but just induce unnecessary panic in an already stressful situation. So thank you for putting information out there to help dispel that, so everybody will know the facts as we know them. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Mrs. Matthews.
Mrs. Blevins, excuse me, I'd just like to thank you again, too, echoing what President Matthews has said, the amount of work and labor that you guys have put into this, the intention, the communication, it's phenomenal. Thank you for the updates. I also really appreciate that you've taken what is a really terrible situation and found a way to bring some positivity to it. I think our Wilson students are going to benefit from having more space and more educational resources. I think our freshman students are going to benefit in some ways, even though these changes are hard. I recognize that. But I think that we are making changes that are forced to be made, but will have some really nice silver linings and benefits. And I appreciate that your team is putting students first.
Thank you, Dr. Hopkins.
We don't have any other comments. We'll move into our open session, our business meeting. We've already done our pledge. We'll have a motion for approval of board agenda, of our agenda.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier, if you call the roll, please.
Dr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Matthews?
Yes.
Ms. Mancuso?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll have our, take a motion for approval of minutes.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier, if you call the roll.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Matthews?
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Ms. Mancuso?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't see anyone here for public participation. And I'll turn it over to Superintendent Blevins for our superintendent update.
Thank you, President Matthews. I typically like to speak to each of you, but I would like to start with a red statement this evening, just in light of all the changes. I think it's important to make sure that I articulate the emotion and my thoughts tonight. So I put here, good evening. I want to first start by acknowledging how hard these last 2 weeks have been for our district. That includes everyone in this room, Mr. Frazier, Mr. Wright, myself, our staff, our students, our community. First, I want to thank the care and concern that has been shown for our employees during what has been an incredibly difficult time. I'm deeply grateful for the professionalism, the compassion, and support demonstrated by our staff and the members of our community. That support matters, and it has not gone unnoticed. I also want to recognize the intent behind so many recent community conversations that have reached out to ask how they can help, to support impacted staff and identify opportunities for them moving forward. Please know that our district shares that same commitment. We have proactively provided the names of impacted employees to surrounding districts' human resource departments and through the Butler County Educational Service Center, which will be assuming the responsibility for preschool and nursing. We have secured guaranteed interviews for those affected staff. While compensation structures may differ, our goal has been and will continue to be to help every impacted employee land as softly as possible. It's important for our community to understand that these decisions were not made in isolation. This process included staff input, community feedback, and extensive research into how comparable districts provide services. As we worked to reduce an almost $10 million deficit, every effort was made to keep reductions as far away from the classrooms as possible. No cut is easy, but responsible leadership required us to reduce spending while still protecting students and our core mission of our district. Many of the changes we are making put us in alignment with the staffing structure of our neighboring districts. I also want to be very clear. I know each of our board has said this, but there is no conspiracy here. The state of Ohio, which provides approximately 80% of our annual funding, changed its funding structure this past summer, and recent legislation signed in December continues to reduce reliance on local property taxes. The result of these changes is significantly less revenue for districts like ours in a matter of months, not years. No amount of internal budgeting could fully absorb these changes without the impact you're seeing. Our district budgets and expenditures are public record and are openly reviewed at every Board of Education meeting. To those who are upset by these changes, I want you to know that we are too. But we must find a path forward that continues to advocate for fair school funding without placing additional burden on our local property owners. Every employee in this district, from administrators and teachers to support staff and crossing guards, cares deeply about Hamilton City Schools. The continuation of people, positions, and the work that they do make an already difficult situation harder. We are not handing out paychecks that are misaligned with education, experience, or market values. Year after year, state audits show that Hamilton City Schools operates with a more efficient spending and lower overhead than both state average and comparable districts. We have not asked for new operating money in over 33 years. Let that sink in. 33 years we have not asked for new money. And we do not have a strategy to change that. That information is public record, and I encourage anyone interested to review it. My encouragement for our community is this: stay engaged, watch board meetings, ask questions of your elected officials, learn what is happening not only in Hamilton but across Ohio and across the country. Just last week, multiple districts made headlines for facing the same challenges, with more announcing in the coming months. This is a nationwide issue affecting states like Texas, Florida, Ohio, Arizona, Wisconsin, Indiana, North Carolina, Alabama, and Louisiana, just to name a few. The next state funding cycle will begin discussion in the spring of 2027. There is time to address these issues, so districts and communities are not forced to repeat this cycle, but we need all. We will be working in the coming months to create opportunities for our community to come together to help advocate for change. This is essential because if meaningful changes do not occur, this will not be the last time that districts face decisions like these. Until we collectively decide that public schools are the center of our communities and fund them accordingly, these challenges will continue. Every dollar must be weighed carefully, and I firmly believe that has been done here in Hamilton City Schools. The actions we are taking to reduce this deficit provide the most responsible, immediate path forward. However, real lasting change will require broader understanding, engagement, and advocacy beyond a single meeting or moment. We will continue to do our part. We believe in Hamilton City Schools, and we ask our community to continue believing and advocating for our schools as well. Just wanted to share those statements before I get into other pieces on the agenda. I'm passionate about this, you can tell. This is important to me that we do this right, and I really encourage our residents, our families, our staff to understand what is happening in this state and to get involved, because that's the only way it changes. It's not what we do here in this meeting. It's what we do in the community, what we do with our voting, what we do to our state legislators. And it is important that this is shared by all of us.
You summed it up well, and I appreciate that. And I've read some of the same comments you have about, we should have seen this coming. I would tell people, go back and look at our board meetings in June and July, how shocked we were, outraged. Because before then, we had the fair funding formula, which gave us an opportunity to plan for the future. I can remember in May, hey, we're fine. We're gonna be all right, not great.
Right, we'll be okay, yes.
Maybe we'll, live within our means. And lo and behold, they dropped that bombshell. We're not gonna follow that. We're gonna cut your funding. So anybody that thinks that we should have known this years ago, go back and look at our previous board meetings.
Absolutely. I have a few other comments that were not related to that topic this evening, just about some of the items you'll see. Although I have to first start with, just recently at 3:30 today, we did announce that for tomorrow, we unfortunately have had to cancel school due to the continued weather conditions that this weekend storm has brought our way. I did see a funny meme that showed that Elsa was arrested over the weekend, so I'm hopeful that that will bring warmer days here in the future. But I do want to share a massive thank you to our custodial and maintenance crews for helping to clear our lots and sidewalks. They were out all weekend. They were back in their lots this morning at 4 a.m. trying to clear and be ready as much as we can. I also want to thank our city for their tireless efforts. We will continue to monitor and make the best decisions we can. This might include closures, delays, or regular operation. We are attempting to make those decisions as early as possible while also understanding the importance of getting our students and our staff back into our buildings. Please continue to monitor communications, plan for any scenario, and put safety first always. On the agenda this evening, you have a few items that you'll see for approval. You will see on the HR agenda, there are 3 different items under the HR agenda this evening. The first is just our personnel typical agenda that we have that features some retirements and resignations, as well as extra hours and student teacher stipends. You'll also see there are 2 MOUs for our AFSCME 468 union. Again, that is our food service why am I totally blanking on that? And maintenance custodial staff. There are 2. The first one is just a reclassification of job titles. So anytime we change roles and responsibilities, we do have to take that back through. So you'll see that there's a MOU there to change the title from a food service technician to a food service maintenance classification. You'll also see there's a second MOU that adds dental coverage to the negotiated insurance premiums that the members of that union pay. On our consent agenda for our, we've got a number of items on here. The first, you'll see there's an agreement with Modern Psychiatric and Wellness to provide services to students. That is at no cost to the district. That is where they come in, our counselors come in and work, their counselors come in and work with our students at no cost. You'll also see there are a number of field trips up for approval today. One, NJROTC is active in their season. I know some of you were able to go last week and watch their event here, but they will be traveling to Grove City, New Albany, and Indianapolis. You'll also see the jazz band is heading to Beaver Creek for the Beaver Creek Jazz Festival. Under special education, you'll see there's a number of items there. One is a Learn Well agreement that provides special education services to our students here in the district. You'll also see there are 4 separate agreements for individual students who need to be placed outside of the district based on their disability and their needs. You can see that those agreements are for the remainder of the year and go from $23,000 to $42,000 for the second half of the school year. So I just like to draw eyes to those. Under our business operations, there are a few items there. One, you'll see approval of our general maintenance contract that helps to service our different equipment throughout the district. You'll see that out of permanent improvement funds, there are 2 projects in there. One, we talked about how beautiful our buildings. We do a nice job of leveraging our permanent improvement dollars to ensure we do regular maintenance. Ridgeway is due for carpet upgrades this year, so you'll see that's there out of that PI fund, as well as parking lot pavement, repavement at Ridgeway, Highland, and Brookwood that will also be paid out of PI dollars this summer. You will see there are 2 grants that are up for approval this evening. One is a grant from Meyer, which will allow our freshman students to go to Miami University for a college visit. We also have a grant from the New York Life Foundation that will pay for Companions on a Journey, grief counseling that comes into our school for any student that has lost a family or close friend. Then you will see, we finally have gotten our state and federal allocations. So as Mr. Frazier has talked about, not all of our dollars come from local or from state. We also have a number of dollars that come from the federal government. As you know, this August, those were a little late coming in. Well, if we do not spend all of our dollars, we then get something called carryover, where they take it back and then they give it back to us. And so while it's a lot later than October, we did receive our carryover allocations in each of those title funds that are up for approval this evening. President Matthews, I know those were long-winded, but those are my comments for this evening.
No, thank you so much for your comments. Definitely greatly appreciated. Next on our agenda is our human resource. Do I have a motion?
I would make the motion to approve the human resources.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any comments? Mr. Frazier, call the roll, please.
Ms. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, I'll accept the motion for our consent agenda.
I would move that we adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Call the roll. Oh, yeah,
I just had a
Rebecca.
question, if I may, just
Sure.
ask about one of these items on the agenda before we, not a concern, but a question about the special enrollment, special education enrollment with SEOI, Special Education of Ohio Inc. Just because that's something we haven't seen before here, and wondering are there possibilities for engaging with them in some way in the future, or any of the others, to help us with the changes we're going through?
Want to field that?
So one of the things that Ms. Blevins did speak about earlier is obviously with us moving the Miami School to Wilson, there is a little more space there. Mr. Watkins, the Executive Director for Special Ed, and I both visited SESI down in Mount Healthy. They call it High Road. And it is an opportunity, I think, in the future for us to have an in-house system where we can handle some of our students who need a higher level of need, whether it be behavior or whatever concerns that may be going on. I do think this is something down the line that would save the district a significant amount of money, both in transportation and outplacing costs. The outplacing costs are exorbitant when we do have special education students who do need those sort of more restrictive placements. So I do think that's something we need to consider as a board and as a school district, both as a need for our students, but also financially, the future, we don't know exactly what it does look like. And I think if we can provide those services here on site in district, it would be a benefit not only financially, but also for our students, giving them the needs that they deserve.
It's a great question. That's something, Mount Healthy has partnered with this agency to bring them into their school district. They, as Mr. Wright talked about, down the line, we think that would be something we would like to possibly look at. But for now, they are opening up spots to allow our students to come there. So that will be the first student that is placed there for our district, to see how that goes. And then to be able to evaluate and bring back a recommendation down the line, 2 to 3 years, to see if that's something here in Hamilton we would like to partner with.
Nice. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Frazier, can you call the roll?
Ms. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is accept the motion to approve our finance agenda.
I'll move.
I'll second.
I think he hasn't
Yeah,
presented it.
Yeah, let him present it first.
I just, as soon as you said that, I thought,
I thought I was going to get away with that.
presented it yet. Like, it just, yeah.
I was going to let that roll, President.
Right, yeah. Mr. Roman, I thought he presented because he's done the analysis, so it was like.
I've talked enough this meeting. So we do have a relatively light finance agenda. Thank you, Andrea, for pulling that up.
we have the tax advance resolution. So every year at this time, we approve a similar resolution. And what that does is I will send this to the county auditor. And as they are collecting taxes, this will allow them to send us money, so we don't have to wait for the final settlement. So we can get our money sooner in our bank and start collecting interest for us. So we do that every year. We do have a confirming requisition for TV Hamilton this evening. That's due to their moving offices. We have the normal treasurer reports that we talked a little bit about earlier. And then again, we have a massive list of donations. I love highlighting these. We can just see, all the good things that are going on as far as monetary or in-kind donations given to the district. Again, it's almost $10,000 just on this meeting alone. So love sharing that. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Safe now. No. Thank you, sir. Do we have, anybody have any comments or questions for Mr. Frazier? No? All right, do I accept the motion for approval of the agenda?
I think we've had a first by Ms. Mancuso and a second by Dr. Hopkins. Is that correct? Okay, I'll call the roll. Dr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Ms. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Matthews?
Yes. All right, our next meeting will be on Tuesday, February the 10th, here at 533 Dayton Street. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Awesome. Mr. Frazier, if you call the roll.
Dr. Hopkins?
Here.
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Mancuso?
Yes.
Ms. Matthews?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.